Danny had a tool that was manufactured, designed on the ground and manufactured by Sonny up here on orbit, and JR had another tool that was put together on the ground, and they ended up bringing this thing in. It was about halfway in when they started, and you can see it here. They've got it all the way down to really just a little over a bay. We had to stop there and have an inspection done, and once that was complete, we were able to complete the retraction and latching of this solar array, which was a big part of what we had planned to do on this mission. Here you see the end of the solar array retraction. We took it down about a half a day at a time to make sure that everything was aligned properly. And when we got close enough, we had to wait and make sure that the latches and everything would be ready to close it down permanently. As we did all this, we were working on the shuttle flight deck and in the station with two computers. And Sonny would power up the motors to cause the retraction, and then we would send abort commands to stop and check out the work and make sure everything was going according to plan.
One of the first things we set up was an oxygen transfer to take shuttle oxygen and put it into the ISS airlock O2 tanks. That involved some commanding on the computers, and then Oleg and myself hooked up some hoses in the airlock, and then through some valves that are in the shuttle docking system in the vestibule. Hooking up of the oxygen transfer is high pressure oxygen can be very flammable, so we're very careful. We wear surgical gloves when we actually make the connections. Right there, we're just inspecting the valves.
Right now, this is Clay, and I'm checking the pressures. We've set up a system now that JR installed the hydrogen vent valve on the outside of the station for our oxygen generation system. My job on the inside was to set up all the connections and complete the work that Sonny and Mike Lopez Alegria did before.
And here you see Fyodor and Oleg, and they are doing further on troubleshooting in the service module, working on the computers and using the scope meter to try to identify where there might be some of that electrical interference that I was talking about, that me and Swanee were reconnecting the electric connection for.
And here's Pat and Swanee again, Pat on the left, Swanee on the right, and we're doing a procedure review, walking through all the steps for what they're going to do tomorrow on the EVA, and their primary task is to remove all the equipment now that will allow the SARGs to rotate, and so the solar arrays that we've just installed out there will be able to track the sun, and it will also open up the translation path for the mobile transporter for the big arm. And here you can see Daniel Levis working with the crew, EVA crew tomorrow, Steve Swanson and Pat Forrester, getting them, putting them in bed in the airlock tonight, and that's where they're at right now, in their camp out overnight in the airlock.
There's Sonny packing up to go home. She says hi to Marcia. There's a note that Marcia personally wrote. Marcia Ivins, she did a lot of bench reviews for this crew, and we'd like to thank her for all her support.
And here you can see Swanee and Pat with their mask on for a 45-minute pre-breathe, and after that they'll be camping out in a depressed airlock overnight. There you can see Steve Swanson is ready to go, and Pat Forrester, his EV3 is ready to go, and there's Pat. As the IV crew member, my responsibility is to make sure that all the necessary procedure steps have been followed to ensure the safety of the EV crew members. Once our 10-2 depress is complete, we just have to repressurize the equipment in the crew lock back to 14.7, and this allows us to put the EV crew members into the crew lock and depress the vacuum of space. And here you can see Pat Forrester coming out of the airlock. This was a great spacewalk to be part of. First of all, we were going to go out and finish the task for which 13A came up here, and that's to leave a working solar array for more power for the station. Also, we had a chance to do some tasks that we had done just a little training on, and it's a good chance for us to utilize the skills training that we receive all along. We were able to do some things that will help future spacewalks and to set things up for future spacewalks. One of the things we did was, once again, to put the Sarge in a configuration where they can begin to rotate the solar arrays. And we did that by removing the last remaining launch restraints, do a little bit more work on the drive lock assemblies. And then once that was done, we gave Houston a go to begin their work on the ground to power it up. Another task that we had on this spacewalk was to clear what we call the path for the mobile transporter, and it's a piece of equipment that can move up and down the front face of the truss. The robotic arm can ride on that, and it's a piece, we call it the drag link kill pin. The kill pin is something that helps hold it in the shuttle bay as we bring it up, but once we get it up there, we don't need it anymore. So here we are. We have disconnected it, and we're rotating it into a position on the interior of the truss where it will be stowed. The spacewalk is a whole lot more than the two people that are outside. It's an entire team. You've already seen Danny, who got us suited up and out the door safely. Then Jim Riley is inside the orbiter, and he is running through all the procedures and gives us instruction on how to do each task, especially for an EVA like today that is just put together the day before. We haven't really practiced it as a end-to-end spacewalk, and so we depend a lot on him to put us in the right place and give us the instruction that we need. We had a chance today to translate over to some areas where we hadn't been very often or hadn't spent much time, and one of those is we were trying to connect a cable that runs from the node of the American section over to the Russian segment. And the Russian connector was already out there waiting, so we took a cable out there and made that connection that will help with node inside the station land. I also opened the H2 valve that Clay was working on inside, and Jim Riley had been working on 2 days ago on his second spacewalk. It's right above the orbiter, so it was a good chance to take a peek in the windows.
Okay, this is Barragebo. There was no robotic operations today in support of today's EVA, so during the EVA, while Pat and Swanee were outside doing their deal on EVA 4, myself and Sonny and Daniel Levis and Clay Anderson were helping in some last-minute storage items that were transferring over from the International Space Station to the orbiter. Here you can see it. Nice pass from Clay Anderson to Sonny, deflecting them back around to myself, and then from there we'll take it over to the orbiter.
Well, this was our last evening to have possibly to have a little celebration with the expedition crew. So we did the traditional hanging of our sticker on the node wall. You can see there's a lot of history there with all the other shuttle missions that have flown up here to the station. This time we put on a different technique, which worked a little better.
Another tradition we have is our EV1 Jim Riley is hanging the sticker in the airlock. I know it's a great tradition for him because he made the first spacewalk out of there, and one of his earlier patches is on. So we do put that sticker inside the airlock, and we all get a chance to sign that. It was a lot of fun.
After we finished the signing of the patch, then it was time for both crews to join together in the Russian segment. It's a Russian tradition to offer foods to the visiting crews, and we were happy to partake with some of that. It's kind of unique, different foods that we're not used to eating in the American diet. It was all good. I believe I tried moose pate for the first time tonight, so that was delicious. There's a lot of history in the service module. They have pictures up there from the past missions, and including a picture of Yuri Gagarin, the first human being to fly in space.